Good evening, everybody. Hello and welcome back. This is a tribute to Mike Rinder. As a lot of you already know, yesterday was a very, very sad day in the world of ex-Scientologists and those who are fighting against the abuses of various cults and coercive groups. And we lost somebody who had a great impact on many number of people's lives. So I thought I would just take a little bit of time to remember Mike with you guys, read out some of your comments, read a statement that I wrote on my blog, and some of the memories that people have of who Mike Rinder was that were posted on Tony Ortega's The Underground Bunker earlier today. It's going to be hard. I couldn't do a live stream yesterday. It was difficult news to digest. And I want to start this by firstly saying my thoughts, my sympathy, my everything is with Christy and the boys, those who were in Mike's family and his close circles. I can only imagine how difficult this is for them. This news will affect a lot of people around the world in lots of different ways, and we are all grieving his loss. And so I thought it would be appropriate just to hold some space and just remember who Mike was. So let's start with my blog post on Scientology business. I have halted all publication of several stories that I had going out over the next couple of days. I've paused everything because I think it's really important to give Mike this platform for a little while because he deserves it. So this is my statement here, remembering Mike Rinder. In his final days as the Church of Scientology's international spokesperson, Mike Rinder stood in the doors of the London Test Centre on Tottenham Court Road, vehemently defending his faith to BBC Panorama journalist John Sweeney, who had questioned whether their leader, David Miscavige, physically abuses his staff. Having only days prior been locked in a double-wide trailer known as The Hole, a North Korea-style hard manual labor re-education camp at Scientology's international base in California, it was this encounter that led Mike to question the organization he was a part of, and he escaped the following day. Little did I know, only a few short years later, I would be standing in that very same doorway, denying the same rumors and determined to prove the public wrong about their understanding of what Scientology really is. Now I find myself once again standing in his shoes, only this time on the other side, trying to raise awareness and put an end to the abuses that are prevalent inside the Church of Scientology. In leaving Scientology, Mike did not go quietly. He made it his life's mission to sound the alarm and appeared in dozens of documentaries, news stories, and in 2023, he published a book, A Billion Years, in which he describes the lengths he went to briefing law enforcement agencies and government bodies. At one point, even arranging an informant to infiltrate the organization wearing a wiretap to collect evidence for the FBI. The docuseries he produced with actress Leah Remini, Scientology in the Aftermath, ran for 3 seasons and won multiple Emmy Awards. But the show was not only a television success. It gave ex-Scientologists an opportunity to see that they were not alone and gave them the courage to share their own experiences publicly. For 2 decades, Mike endured the worst of Scientology's fair game harassment tactics, following him with private investigators, setting up hidden cameras outside his home, and attempting to infiltrate his inner circle of friends and confidants. But he did not give up in his mission to end Scientology's abuses and carried on fighting until his final days. In November 2023, when I announced the first IES protest, Mike was quick to reach out and offer his support, and ever since, he has continued to be a mentor and a friend. He was always there at the end of the phone whenever I needed advice, guidance, or a comment for an article here on Scientology Business, and we kept in touch right up until the day before his passing. In his final blog post titled Farewell, Mike wrote, If you are in any way fighting to end those abuses, please keep the flag flying. Never give up. There is no doubt Mike's efforts paved the way for many to escape and find a platform to share their stories. He lit the torch I and many others must now carry in his honor. Thank you for your hard work, your determination, your courage, and your bravery, Mike. We all owe you a tremendous debt of gratitude, and we will continue to fly the flag here in the UK on your behalf. My thoughts are with his wife, Christy, and his family. And then I've copied the text and put a link here to his final blog post, which I'm sure everybody has already read. If you haven't already, there is a link in the description. There's a link in there if you want to donate to his son Jack's college fund. If you're in the US, you can use the government savings system with the link, or you can just go to the donate page on Mike Rinder's blog and donate through PayPal if you live abroad. But I think it's really important with Mike to note that a lot of people leave Scientology and don't do anything. They just go about their business, they move on, they live their life, and they never speak out. And that's absolutely fine. Leaving Scientology does not require you to speak out and stand up against the abuses if it's too traumatic, if you've got family that are still in, if you just simply don't want to become an activist. That's absolutely fine. Mike Rinder was not one of those people. He is one of the few people who stood up and had the bravery and courage to then make it his life's mission to raise awareness of what's going on inside Scientology and do what he can to stop those abuses. And that says a lot about his character, I think. It does take a lot of bravery to speak out against Scientology, and Mike didn't just, write a couple of news articles or publish a single book. He spent a lot of time and effort trying to fly the flag, as he calls it. He had the TV show Leah Remini in the Aftermath. He was on BBC Panorama. He did multiple major news interviews and documentaries. He had his YouTube channel. He had his book. He joined the board of Child USA. He helped set up the Aftermath Foundation. He made it his life's mission to try and set things right and try and make people aware of what's going on and help those who are still being affected by Scientology. And I'm not saying this to judge people who don't do that. It's absolutely fine to not do those things. If you leave Scientology, you want to go about your business and do your own thing and not think about it ever again, that's absolutely fine. But what I'm trying to say here is that Mike was a special person and he really wanted to make things right. And because of him, a lot of people have left. A lot of people have found the courage to speak out about what they suffered, what they endured. And if it wasn't for him, the ex or anti-Scientology movement, whatever you want to call it, would be in a very different place. He really pushed things forward and allowed others to find the confidence to speak out, to say, hey, you are not alone. Other people suffered this. Other people experience things in Scientology, and the abuse isn't just something that happens at the upper levels of management. It happens at every level of the organization in every city in which it operates. And I really want to just pay tribute to Mike's efforts and how impactful it has been for ex-Scientologists, but also for other members of other cults. Jehovah's Witnesses and Mormons have spoken on their own YouTube channels about how Mike Rinder's efforts in this space helped them to find the courage to speak out against the abuse they suffered in their cults. So that was my little message. And I want to read through some of these comments here that you guys have been posting. Lupita T says, please accept my sincere sympathy. I was saddened to hear about your loss. Well, it's not my loss. It's everyone's loss. And it's particularly Mike's family's loss. But thank you. Bok Buddy, bless Mike, Christy, the boys, and his family of choice. Juliana Bittencourt, rest in peace, Mike. Yeah. If anyone deserves it, it's him. He went through hell in his life. He chose to go through that. He didn't have to speak out, right? That's another thing that I want to get forward is like he chose full knowing that Scientology are going to come after him with the full brunt of their fair game tactics, with a multi-billion-dollar bank account with which to harass and intimidate its members. Mike didn't go quietly. He didn't let that phase him. He said, I know those are the risks and that they are going to try and destroy me, but I don't care. It is more important that I speak out and do what I can to make things right. And that's what I think is really important. Buffy Lynn says, Mike was a fantastic human, father, advocate, and accomplished far more than all the misinformed critics to expose abuses in the Church of Scientology. He helped more escape than almost anyone and is a true hero. Yeah. He certainly was a warrior. Careful JCYT, I admire how he worked so hard to end the abuses of the Church of Scientology. He worked hard to be a better person. He was not perfect, but in the end, very brave. Absolutely. And that's the thing. We're all human. Nobody's perfect. Mike held a very senior position in the Church of Scientology. Anybody who was in Scientology did bad things. Yes, there is a scale, and people did worse things than others, and people were more abusive than others and less abusive. But what matters to me is looking at what the person does after leaving. And Mike is one of those people that spent his whole remaining life trying to make things right, trying to say, hey guys, there's an abusive organization going on here, and this is what's going on, and helping the FBI and various law enforcement agencies to investigate, to try and put a stop to those abuses and to warn people about what's going on. And that's what I respect. Sequana Blondell said, this is a loss for humanity. I pray for those who loved him and everyone he ever loved, especially those who are still trapped in that cult. Yeah, and let's not forget, Mike has family who is still in Scientology, and he never managed to reunite with his son, which I think is very, very sad. Danielle Chamberlain, thank you for joining. Very sad loss. Nev first met him in Australia when visiting his parents when Mike was 12. I first met him on the Apollo. He received a lot of flack for his OSA involvement, but he more than made up for it in his steadfast determination to highlight and fight Scientology abuse and helping others. May he rest in peace. Absolutely. And look, Mike is someone that was always there at the end of the phone. I literally was texting him the day before he passed away. If I ever needed anything to help with the activism I'm doing here in the UK, he was just a text away. If I was to say, hey, Mike, I'm meeting a politician tomorrow and I need some documents to talk about this, or can you give me a comment about this because I'm speaking with a journalist and they need to verify that what I'm saying is not just made up. Within minutes, he would reply with whatever it is I needed. He made it very, very clear that he was there to help and support my efforts here in the UK in any way that he can. And he was there right through till the end. And he will be extremely missed. And it's a very difficult time. Vault Digger says, hi, Alex and chat. Rest in peace. Elron Hubbard here says, sad day, great man. Deanna Ross says, Mike turned down a payout. That says it all. Rest in peace, Mike. Yeah, absolutely. One of the first things Scientology did, my understanding, is offer him money and say, hey, here's a load of money. Please sign this. Stop talking about us. We'll go our separate ways. But he said no. He said, I'm standing up for what's right here and going to try and set the record straight. That says a lot about his character. Jessica LaBarber says, condolences to Christy and the boys. My thoughts go out to Mike Rinder's older children as well, who will not be allowed to grieve, just as they were not allowed to see him. Rest in peace, Mike. Yeah. SP Crusader Leany. Hi, Leany. Thank you for joining. His legacy will live on. He will live on in so many hearts. Absolutely. And in his final blog post, he said to carry his flag and never give up. And it has emboldened me and lit the fire, I suppose, under me to carry on flying the flag here in the UK on his behalf. You know, I said in my statement, he lit the torch that we must now carry. And it is in his honor that I will be continuing to fight Scientology here in the UK and their abuses. And I will fight even harder to try and give a voice to those victims whose voice has been taken away. Mike may no longer be with us, but his voice hasn't been taken away. His voice lives on in us as activists, as a community, and we need to unite to do what we can to carry on the work that he, I was going to say started, but he didn't start it. There were lots of activists before Mike Rinder, but he really propelled the movement to a great extent in the early 2000s and in the 2010s. He sort of ignited this new generation of critics and former members, and we need to carry the momentum that he started. We need to carry that forward, is my belief. I want to read some other memories from people that knew and loved Mike. This is Tony Ortega's The Underground Bunker. Again, I've put links to this in the description down below. He posted this today. I'm not going to read all of them. I want to encourage you to go and read it yourselves. But he just posted some memories that people had sent to him of Mike Rinder. The first is Alex Gibney, who directed Going Clear. He said, "It's rare when people can change. It's even more rare when someone can reckon with their own misdeeds, admit them, and then find a way to make amends. Mike Rinder was such a man." As the one-time spokesperson for Scientology, he was a fierce defender of the cult, who was an expert at employing fair game, the church's form of psychological warfare. Over time, he was able to understand and reckon with the noble cause, corruption that afflicts people who feel that, because they are on a mission, they are entitled to be ruthless and cruel. To leave a cult, you have to admit, down deep, that you have been fooled, that you have been wrong, and at the same time, have enough faith in yourself to know that redemption is not only possible, but necessary. Mike found redemption and also a generosity which allowed him to work with others who had been fooled and to work to expose the human rights abuses of Scientology, some of which he had enabled. I remember sitting with Mike in Florida and shooting an interview for the film that became Going Clear. I think the camera rolled for 5 hours that day, and I felt like we had just scratched the surface. Mike was patient with me as I tried to dig deeper into the history of the church and his role in it. He smiled, as someone who has been to hell and back can do, and said, "I'm willing to take you as deep as you want to go." I remember him saying that in his funny, declarative way of speaking, in which he was careful, in his faded Australian accent, to enunciate every syllable, likely a bit of spokesman training, but also to make sure that he was being clear in the very best sense of the word. Mike was brave, kind, and fair. I will miss him. Phil Jones is here. Thank you for joining, Phil. Nice tribute for Mike. Thanks, Alex. Thank you, Phil. And my heart goes out to you as somebody who's affected by this. Gabe's in the house. Hi, Gabe. Thank you for joining. Escaping the Cultiverse. Mike was a trailblazer. He took on Goliath and delivered effective blows to the beast. He's left a legacy. He's a true warrior. Thank you, Mike. You're a true legend. Absolutely. And I also want to just note that, look, we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Mike. Mike elevated Scientology onto the global stage. There was a lot of news and press coverage about Scientology in the past. In a video I did just the other day, we were talking about politicians in Parliament discussing Scientology, dating way back to the 1960s and 70s. But what Mike did was bring it into a new unit of time, to use the Scientology term, and make the press aware that it's not just a harmful movement, it's a harmful movement that are continuing to abuse people to this very day in every level of its organization. And by bringing that awareness to the press, the wider public became engaged in this mission, and that's how we had Scientology in the Aftermath, and that's why we now have SPTV, or whatever you want to call this community of people on YouTube. There are people invested in our mission to try and end these abuses that simply wouldn't be interested or even know what Scientology is if it wasn't for the work that Mike had put in years prior with things like BBC Panorama. So he had a huge impact that is lasting, and his legacy will continue living on. Let's read some more of these. Spanky Taylor, who I had the pleasure of meeting in LA when I went to America last year. She is a lovely human being. She was in the Going Clear documentary. Spanky says, Tony, thank you so much for asking me to share my feelings with you about the passing of our dear and cherished friend, Mike Rinder. Mike has touched a part of my heart that few have. He was courageous and unwavering in his commitment of battling Scientology along with his strong, noble, and tenacious partner, Leah. Their valiant and effective exposure gave a voice to so many whose stories needed to be told, and in doing so prevented many more from falling victim to a ruthless organization. For that, I owe him infinite thanks. Mike, you are a much-loved father, husband, and friend. I'm honored to have shared with you the time we had together. I will always hold you in high esteem. You are and will remain a hero of mine. I'm holding Christy and the boys in my heart. Like I said, I don't want to read every single one of these because I want you to go and read the article yourself, but I'm just picking a selection here. Phil Jones, who just popped into the chat, his memories are published in this article too. Phil and Willie says, Mike and Christy were generous and kind hosts who invited us over at times when we visited our grandkids in Florida during the winter. In 2022, Mike showed his skills at cooking a mean steak on the barbecue when they invited us for dinner. And we spent New Year's Eve last year at the Rinders with some awesome people. It was some fun times in between working to expose the abuses of Scientology. When doing the billboard for the Aftermath in LA, after I'd been attacked on the street, Mike, along with Leah and other Aftermath members, were on the phone making sure I was okay. Mike was a caring and kind individual in my experience. I was also happy to be included in Mike and Leah's podcast and was thankful to the platform for the platform to share my experiences in dealing with Scientology over the past decade. Mike will be sorely missed. He was a warrior in the battle against the wealthy, abusive cult of Scientology. We were fortunate to fight alongside him at times. Love and respect to a good friend. And I think warrior is such a good word for Mike. He went down fighting. He was fighting right until the very end. And that is something that I respect greatly. And I think we could all take a lesson from how Mike engaged in this fight. He never gave up, he never backed down, and he continued to use the platform that he created to share the experiences of other people. Yes, he shared his own story of abuse in his book, A Billion Years, which I've got just behind me. Great book, by the way. But he used the platform that he built, for example, Leah Remini in the Aftermath of the show, to tell the stories of abuse that hadn't been told before and wave the flag on behalf of other people. It was selfless. And And it just goes to show what sort of person he was. Let's carry on with some of these. Vault Digger. I will always remember when Mike hired a plane to fly over the opening ceremony of the Superpower building with a Where's Shelley banner in tow. Yeah. And you know what's funny about that? I was on staff at London Org when that happened, and we had no idea whatsoever that that was going on. We thought it was the most momentous occasion, and it was the biggest Scientology event ever, or in recent history at least. And we had no idea that Mike Rinder was flying a plane up there at the event. Excuse me. Jane Boucher says, "Thank you, Alex, for your insight and kind words for a man who redeemed himself post Scientology." Yeah, absolutely. And Mike talks in his farewell post about living two lives. Let's bring that up. This is his farewell final blog post. He said, "This is the last post on this site. I have shuffled off this mortal coil in accordance with the immutable law. There are only two certainties in life, death and taxes." And this is another thing that I love about Mike, is he managed to inject a little bit of humor. Even though this is a very sad occasion and this is a very sad post, he still managed to remain lighthearted in this post and say, hey, it's okay to find humor when it's appropriate. This site will remain as an archive of more than 4,000 posts and 300,000 comments. It has been a labor of love and passion which has allowed me to speak my mind and offer my perspective with no outside filters. I have been lucky living two lives in one lifetime. The second one, the most wonderful years anyone could wish for, with all of you and my new family. And I think that's the thing that I want to focus on in this stream, is his second life, the effort that he went to try and stop people suffering in the same way that he did. You know, this is a guy who was thrown in the lake at St. Hill during winter as punishment by David Miscavige. This is a guy who was physically abused and assaulted by David Miscavige. This is a guy who received a daily barrage of insults, name calling, of bullying by Miscavige and other senior leaders inside Scientology when he was a top executive. Even when he was in a position of power, he was being beaten down. And when he finally left, he said, I'm done with this, and bring it on, because I'm going to stand up so that no one else has to deal with what I went through. And that's really, really important to me anyway. Phil Jones says, I was on the ground at the Superpower building when Mike flew over in the helicopter. Wow. Phil, I'd love to talk to you about that someday. I'll drop you an email after this. Dottie McAfee says, Alex, I can see the determination you've contributed even more since you began in your first blog posts. Yeah. And this is only encouraging me to fight harder. You know, Mike did a lot of work. He's now handed over the baton for the new generation of people to carry this fight forward. And I will do what I can to fly the flag in his honor here in the UK, as I'm sure many other people will. You know, we all here collectively hold responsibility now for finishing the work that Mike started. Selena, thank you for joining. Hi, everyone. Good to see you all. I wish it was under better circumstances. Yeah, 100%. I agree. MK Ultraropolis says, I'm not an ex or an actual member of the Church of Scientology, but I always loved that man. Sad news. Rest in peace to Mike. Yeah, that's the thing. He touched a lot of loss of lives. He touched a lot of people who weren't even in Scientology. And that just goes to show the impact of his work. It reached beyond the small sphere, the niche of ex-Scientologists, and brought it into the public fray. His work engaged the wider public audience to be concerned about this issue. And it is with that work that we are now able to speak out on YouTube, on our blogs, in books, and so on, because he gave us the confidence that we're not alone, that we are supported by this wider community of people who've never been in Scientology. And we have that support to bring us forward in seeking justice and raising awareness. All of that trickles down to Mike's initial leaving and standing up against the abuse. I also wanted to share this here. Mike put in his final blog post that he wanted people to, instead of send flowers, to donate to his son Jack's college fund. There is a link to a US government college fund website, but if you're not in the US, you can donate through his blog, Mike Rinder's blog.org/donate. You can set up a monthly donation, or you can donate one time through PayPal. Again, the link is in the description. This is a time for us to reflect on how Mike has affected us in our individual journeys, but also to hold Christy and his family and those who are close to him, Amy Scobie, Claire and Mark Headley, Mark Bunker, those who are in his inner circle. We need to remember them as well and do what we can to support them through this difficult time. This has affected all of us in a very different ways, as I'm sure it will. So let's just remember to be there for each other and look out for each other and work together as a community to grieve, but also let this moment inspire us to carry on fighting and finish the job that Mike started. So thank you so much for joining me. And yeah, that's it for now. Please go and visit the links down below. Rest in peace, Mike.